D&D is an incredibly popular game these days, bordering on mainstream, and heaps of people have played it, or want to play it, or have seen it played. But what if you want to play something a little bit different? Well, we've got you covered. Rest in Pieces may be the most unusual RPG that you've never heard of. This is a mix between a board game and a party game, and is a short role-playing game that you play with 3 other players plus the DM over about an hour. You have a terrible roommate, in this case the Grim Reaper, and it's a bit like Rick and Morty, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and the regular show. You're confronted with ridiculous situations. You play a deadbeat in a shared house with the Grim Reaper, or with this expansion, Cthulhu. And as you draw cards, it gives you ridiculous situations and problems to solve. Now, if you want to solve the problem without a repercussion, you have to draw from the Jenga tower in the middle of the table. If you're doing something for the good of all, you draw a light-colored block, and then you keep it. If you're doing something purely selfish, then you draw a black-colored block. If at the end you make the tower fall, as inevitably you will, the game comes to a conclusion, and the person who has the most blocks decides what happens. It's kind of interesting. It's a very cool take. This is a very quick game and really something fun. You get together with some mates and you play a really rollicking, crazy adventure with lots of laughs. It's an odd one, it's unique, and I think you should give it a try.
Remember, in the old world, there are 3 things that make the Empire great: faith, steel, and gunpowder. In a fantasy world like this, you're all about your skills and your opposed tests. When you build a character, you really have a niche that you want to fill. What I find really appealing about a game like this is because if I want to roleplay that nitty-gritty priest who is out there to destroy the heathens, this is the kind of role-playing system that I'm going to play. Because when you want to roleplay that kind of character and you really want to get into the absolute grunt of it, this one right here, every time.
Deadlands is an RPG set in the Old West, where the Civil War has lasted longer. And why has it lasted longer? Because of a strange material that was found called ghost rock, which powers strange infernal devices. It seems to be made out of souls themselves. It shrieks as it's burnt. And it leads to some interesting conundrums. Now, the Old West is filled with things that crawl through the night, drag people screaming away. Vampires don't seem so unusual anymore. It's so far-fetched. Werewolves, well, you saw a guy down back out that way. Could have been a vampire, could have been a werewolf, just not really sure. This is a great twist on the old classic of the Wild West, where you play adventurous hucksters, gunslingers, and turncoats, all sorts of people that could be out there dealing with a taste of horror, action, and adventure. It's a really, really well done setting with a system that is quite rules light. It's very quick, gets to the action very, very fast, and it just feels different to something like Dungeons and Dragons, where you are maybe grinding through the bad guys, fighting real hard with lots of hit points. This, you're trading shots, and you go down pretty fast if you're not careful. But the wild adventurers will pull off some interesting feats. This is a game that is good for people who want to feel the action faster. They don't necessarily want to build a character that's going to be a tank, a machine, or don't want to play something that's like World of Warcraft. If you're into the Wild West, obviously this is a no-brainer. But if you like a touch of horror, and if you like high-paced action movies, this is one you might want to give a try.
Meanwhile, in Soulbound, which also one of my personal favourites, if you ever want a role-playing system where the party is literally tied to each other, this one's even better than any other thing I could possibly suggest. In Soulbound, the party's souls are literally intertwined with one another. No better way to make everyone move towards the same goal than to have everyone suffer similar circumstances for a mistake. In this particular story, you'll be one of the faithful of Sigmar trying to fight against the hordes of death, chaos, or destruction. The GM will make whatever story they need, but believe you me when I say the party will find a way to work together.
Infected RPG. Now, believe it or not, I'm actually pretty well acquainted with this one. This is set in an alternate future not too far away, where a strange virus, not unlike a flu virus, infects a whole bunch of people real fast. Don't blame me, this was done before the particular incidents that you may or may not be familiar with of recent history. But unlike our one, this was a bit more fatal, in that most people died, but not everybody. And those that didn't die, well, some of them reverted to a more animalistic version of themselves, desperate to feed because the virus was still consuming them. And if they didn't feed, it would just kill them. I did a lot of research on this, and I have had some pretty good feedback over time. One of the most interesting things I thought was survivor politics, and the fact that even though only 1% of population might be alive, that's still millions of people. And so you are investigating, exploring, and doing battle in the ruins of vast cities. You now see just how massive those cities are, because almost all of it is now just falling into decay. I found this one is great if you like a bit of horror, if you like action that is intense and brutal, and you have to think about it before you take steps. You're not going to be just running out into the open and taking all comers, because you're probably going to be having 6 bullets in your gun and a protein bar in your backpack, and that's going to have to last you for quite a while. If you like to think about your actions, if you like horror and really intense action, this one might be for you.
Ultimately, D&D really is a fantastic RPG, but it can't cover everything, and it certainly doesn't do every story out there justice. That's why every other RPG out there has a way of telling a story with a different nuance that D&D doesn't do. So go on out there and explore other stuff.